The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panel. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. I am from the safe, secure, and vibrant U.S.-Mexico border community of El Paso, Texas, where unfortunately we have the dubious distinction of being the testing ground for the Trump administration's family separation policy. Chief Provost, I have a couple questions for you as follow-ups to what some of my colleagues asked you. You acknowledged earlier that you do not know how many children were separated, beginning with the time that the policy was implemented in El Paso in July 2017, and when the policy was officially announced on April 6, 2018. Is that correct?
I don't have that number with me. It is a number that I can get.
Okay, so then you do know how many children exactly were separated during that testing period?
Once again, it wasn't a family separation testing period.
I understand that.
It was a prosecution initiative like many others we have done, but we can pull that information.
Okay, and I'll tell you, and so if we could have that, I'd appreciate that. We do, in El Paso, we call it the child separation policy, because that is exactly what happened. I know it's far more academic to call it by its governmental name, but those of us who have actually sat with the families who've been separated and then reunited, we have seen the trauma firsthand. It's painful, and we should call it for what it is. So what is the plan? Do you know how many of those families during that testing period, how many of them have been reunited?
I do not. That is something that, once again, anybody that we separate for whatever reasons, and there are still reasons that we have to separate into children from parents, that information we provide to HHS going forward, and that I don't deal with the reunifications.
Okay, who on the panel deals with the reunifications?
That would be me, ma'am.
And can you tell me how many of those children have been reunited, those who were separated during the testing period?
If the child was still in ORR's care on the 26th of June 2018, regardless of when they were separated, whether they were separated during the declared period of zero tolerance or before, those are minors who are in the Ms.L., whose parents are in the Ms.L. class, and we can say of those which were reunified and which were not. What neither I nor anyone in HHS knows is which of the children who had already been discharged from our care before the 26th of June, which of them were separated and which weren't. Although, if someone were to give us such a list, we could certainly tell you to whom we discharged every single one of those children.
Who can get you that list?
We don't have it in HHS. I would assume that only DHS could provide such a list.
Okay, so we need to make sure, will you request that list from DHS? Wouldn't it be incumbent on us to make sure that every single child that was separated could be accounted for? Isn't that our obligation?
That's a matter that Judge Sabra is deciding right now.
But I'm talking about the folks before, I'm talking about the children and the families separated.
But unless there is a court order, we are not going to go into the homes of families to take a child out from their other parent or their aunt to bring it back.
All right, thank you. I reclaim my time. Earlier in this hearing, Mr. Raskin referenced the work of the Texas Civil Rights Project. Because of their work, we know that family separation continues to this day, several months after an executive order should have stopped it. Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent that a report by the Texas Civil Rights Project entitled "The Real National Emergency, Zero Tolerance, and the Continuing Horrors of Family Separation at the Border" be entered into the record.
Without objection.
Chief Provost, you stated earlier that children are currently being separated from their parents when the parent has a criminal conviction. Does that include illegal reentry?
It is not for standard entry. If they have a felony charge, it can include illegal reentry.
So they are being separated today because of illegal reentry?
That is a felony. If they have a conviction for it from previous, where they have a felony conviction, they would be a felon, so then in
Okay,
that
that's
case.
shocking.
Not
and
for the
horrifying.
reentry at this point, it's if they have a felony conviction.
Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent that a news report by Julia Ainsley entitled, quote, "Trump administration way targeting migrant families, speeding up deportation of children," be inserted into the record.
Without objection, and the gentlewoman's time has expired.
May I ask a final question just related to this article? The article details memos, one of
I'm
which...
sorry, we can't.
Okay.
Recognize the gentlewoman from Florida.